Hey everybody, how's it going? Dan Schinder here on Drum Talk TV's our original series, a tribute to the tributes with my co-host Jason Johnny. I'm in Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix. Jason's in Livingston, New Jersey for some reason. And and Vince, our guest, is in the Mill Valley area across the Golden Gate Bridge. I guess either side of the Golden Gate Bridge would be across it. But Vince, from the Neil Diamond tribute, which is called Super Diamond. And it is. Excited to have you because let's start with this. And Jason, then give your 3 cents. I'm older than Jason. I'm probably a lot older than you as well. And I grew up listening to Neil's music as his music was coming out in the late 60s, early 70s, because my parents were huge Neil Diamond fans. And he had some great drummers, Dennis St. John, and of course, Ronnie Tutt of 40 Years. And I was in talks with Ronnie to have him on the show before he passed away. It broke my heart because I did interview Bobby Morris, who was Elvis's drummer and then his band leader for 10 years at the Hilton in Las Vegas. So there was that tie-in. So you've got some really big shoes to fill. And what I love is how, as musicians and possibly drummers, Jason, would you agree that often we get kind of like stereotyped or pigeonholed, where if someone sees us playing XYZ type of music or whatever, they think that's what we do. But I'm going to kind of elaborate on that a little bit more in a moment. But Jason, what's your exposure to Neil Diamond's music? How familiar were you with it before you met Vince?
Yeah, I extremely familiar. I mean, I talk about this in my own interviews, that my parents were, though my dad was just a hobbyist bass player, they were enormous music lovers, and there was always music playing in the house, and especially anything from like Motown to singer-songwriter stuff. So I was always exposed to like the Elton Johns and the Billy Joels and those type of peoples growing up besides the Motown, and hugely exposed to Neil Diamond. My parents were really big fans of Neil. We were always running his records at the time when people were actually listening to records and not just singles.
Yeah.
and vinyl. Hey, look at my shirt, by the way.
Yeah.
And so yes, I was hugely exposed to Neil, and then from the pigeonhole perspective,
From your shirt.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Have one right here.
There you go. Yeah, wherever it is. Yeah. From the hip pigeonhole perspective, I could speak miles about Vince and how he's not only just a great player but an incredible educator too. In fact, that's how we actually met each other, through teaching at the same store initially. I think that if anybody watches this show, you'll remember that Dan and I have spoken very, very often about how tribute acts, and especially really specialized tribute acts, are kind of a very big part of job security and
a career path
opportunity. Opportunity these days.
Yeah.
And Super Diamond is, one of the best at that, as far as, really duplicating the sound of what Neil did. And adding their own flavor, which we'll talk about, but how you kind of have to be one of those great players these days to be in that. It's no longer just a hobbyist type of thing. Most people in tribute acts are really, expert musicians.
It's like learning the language. It's not enough to play the math of that music. It's whether you're the guitar player, sax player, drummer, whatever, you have to learn the technique of the player you're emulating, or it all just sounds the same. I always use the analogy, if you go into a bar and you hear a band playing a Lynyrd Skynyrd song, which you'll hear, or a Deep Purple song, and you know which one, or Led Zeppelin, Bad Company, AC/DC, and instead of sounding like each of those bands, they sound like the bar band playing that stuff, and that's not really how it's done. And true tribute bands really learn the language, just like you would learn English from different parts of the U.S. There's different dialects, or French in Canada versus French from Paris, or Chauzy, or all it's really the same. But what I wanted to point out was, and I'm hoping my son Steve, our associate producer, can help me with this with the text, because I just had a senior moment and I've got a head cold, folks, so bear with me. But there's a Neil Diamond tribute act in Vegas. I think he's still around. His first name is Jay. Steve, can you help me out?
White.
Jay White, thank you. Yeah, we did a film of Jay years ago, and Steve was one of the cameramen. And his drummer at the time was Les Warner. So if you think of where Les Warner came from and then playing in a Neil Diamond tribute, it's almost like, huh? You know, if you stereotype Les for the work he did, and I'm having another brain fart. This is just ridiculous. Help me. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. And the same thing with Vince. While the drumming is great on Neil Diamond's music, before we show a clip of that, I want to show a very creative drum solo improvisation by Vince Littleton here with a really neat kit with rototoms and fun stuff like this. So folks, check this out and chime in the comments. Dig Vince on the rotos, on the rototom rims.
Yeah, and I also composed the other just droney sort of thing to play over, which was fun.
Awesome. Let's roll that in.
During the COVID lockdown.
Cool. Check this out, folks. We'll be right back. I could have that playing all day. I just love that. Talk about that composition. I know it's improvised in a large part, but talk about that. What's the influence? And then talk about that crazy setup. And then we'll talk about Super Diamond and show some clips.
Oh, man. So, yeah, I was into world music as a kid, you know, and especially in college. I was in the percussion ensemble, and Marty Ziskowski was my teacher. And that's one of the things I looked forward to going to college for, was that 10 a.m. percussion ensemble. And we did a lot of world music stuff like that. So I just, during the COVID lockdown, I just thought I'd just start layering stuff on top of, instruments on top of things. A lot of the tracks I had from things I'd messed around with a long time ago. And then with the Rototoms, I always liked the way I have to name drop my brother-in-law, Terry Bozio, how he always played Rototoms back when he was, in the missing persons days. And I just thought, man, I got these old Rototoms. I'm just going to set them up. And they still had, I think, the original heads on them from the 70s.
That's great. I love it. You can't get more authentic than that with the sound.
Yeah, I mean, just something to do, really, to keep from going crazy at home. And so just layering, pads and junk like that on the keyboards and stuff. You can find a lot of samples and stuff like that out there. Yeah. And I have some electronic drums, some Rolands, and they had some nice electronic drum sounds too. So you'll probably hear that throughout the track. And that was it.
That's awesome. And some polyrhythmic influence from Jason.
Oh yeah.
Don't bring me into this.
Let's show one of the Super Diamond reels. Let's go with this is the Sweet Caroline promo. Check this out, folks. And if you're a Neil Diamond fan, and I don't think it's just for older folks like me. I think there's a lot of, Neil's got that music where there's like second and third generational stuff. Like I remember taking kids, and even for my father, a grandkid, to a Yes concert before. So Neil's got that type of music. So here's Sweet Caroline. Carolina, here we go.
Where it began, I can't begin to know, but then I know it's going strong. Show us your hand, touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sweet Caroline, good time never seems so good. I've been inclined to believe there never was sweet Caroline.
Awesome. And it's the Cult. Les Warner of the Cult. Thank you, Stephen. Wow, major senior moment. Good friend of mine. I couldn't pull that out of my fog. So like I said, you never know who's going to be playing what type of music.
What's the bald guy's name that plays in AC/DC?
Chris Slade. Chris Slade. Yeah,
and,
he had played in
Tom
The Firm
Jones.
and Uriah Heep,
Tom Jones,
David Gilmour.
man.
Yeah, Tom Jones when he was 18, 17, something like that. He got his break with Tom Jones, yeah.
But you don't think of Tom Jones and AC/DC.
No, exactly. And The Firm and David Gilmour, yeah. Uriah Heep, yeah. Chris
There's
is
another
awesome.
analogy anyway.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Absolutely. So when you tell us how you got the gig, and tell us how familiar were you with the music, and you're like, what's the story, man?
Oh man! So I was playing in a Cajun Zydeco band.
Oh, I see the connection.
And at the Sausalito Arts Festival, and we were on one of the little side stages. And then after we were done, I wanted to see who the headliner was on the main stage, and it was Super Diamond. And that's the first time I'd seen him or even heard of him. And I saw the crowd was actually kind of young for what I would imagine a Neil Diamond tribute band being,
right.
And it was, people were really into it. And I'd heard they'd been around for 5 years or 6 years at that point. Then fast forward, I'm playing a private party with a 12-piece disco Motown band that I think Jason might have played with. That was kind of a big deal in the Bay Area.
Big Band Beat?
Beat.
Yeah, I have, yep.
And that's actually where I met my wife. She was one of the singers at the time. Disco Motown thing. really fun band, 4 girls out front doing the choreographed stuff and all that sequence. And Super Diamond was on the same private party gig.
Oh.
And it's the same booking agent, Daniel Swan, who happens to be a drummer. English guy, is really cool. And anyway, so we're all sharing the same dressing room. And Doug Carlson was the drummer in Super Diamond at that time. Great drummer. And I could kind of tell that he wasn't happy or something. So I said, and the same booking agent, I said, what's going on? And he said, yeah, this is his last gig. This is Doug's last gig. And I said, can I audition? I said, I don't know all of Neil Diamond's songs. I didn't grow up on Neil Diamond. I knew some of them, and I have an uncle who had one of the 8 tracks or something back in the day, you know, but I didn't grow up on Neil Diamond as much. I grew up on Led Zeppelin and Van Halen and, you know, Kiss, that sort of thing. And he said, yeah, you know, I'll get you an audition. And so that's where it went from there. And then when I joined the band, they said, we don't play it. Some of the songs we try to stay close to the record or close to the, you know, some of the live versions of the Neil thing. But we want to inject more edge to the songs, you know. And so that sounded fun. And yeah, so they mix it up. They throw in a lot of quotes from other bands. Sometimes we'll be playing, it's like, well, on the record, it seems like the drummer's not hitting really hard. And they'd be like, no, go for it, hit it hard, you know.
Yeah,
and
that's
we're just
cool.
trying to make it super, you know. And I was like, okay, I hear that, you know.
So
and
you got the audition, and then did you play at the audition?
did I play? I auditioned. Yeah, it was at Secret Studios in San Francisco, a little rehearsal place, and I was the first one out of all like 10 guys that auditioned, and that was weird too. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be first, but
yeah,
you know.
And will they remember you after they go through the others?
I know.
You know, there's that. And what'd you play? Do you remember?
Like 3 or 4 tunes. I remember playing I Am I Said. I remember that one being one of the ones we did. And I learned really from listening to a live recording of Super Diamond, of them with Doug. And I think John Mader had played with them a little bit also.
Oh.
So I had these live recordings of these guys playing with them that they wanted me to study more than the, you know, along with the Neil stuff, but study this vibe.
Yeah.
Try to dig how these guys are doing it, you know.
I think that's a great point. I've been dealing with that for a while, especially in New York, where, you know, your first go-to when you get a gig, even with a big artist, is to learn the studio tracks. And then you're being told more and more, well, listen to the live thing, because there's a lot of time that goes by from when somebody cuts the studio track 30 or 40 years ago to what they're doing live.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think from a professional experience, whoever is listening out there, if you're doing auditions and going through that, definitely listen to both and compare both and make notes on both, because you will get brownie points for doing that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they were really listened to. I think it's Neil Diamond live at the Greek, right?
Live at the Greek, yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that.
And then I would compare that to his studio recordings.
Right.
The tempos were very different on most of the songs.
Right.
And the vibe was even different on a lot of that too. So yeah, you try to find whatever works, you know, out of all those combined, you know, ingredients.
Yeah. So what kind of gigs do you folks do? Do you do a lot of corporate gigs, a lot of casino type gigs, things like that, state fairs?
People always say casino gigs, but we don't get that many casino
Really?
gigs. Yeah.
Interesting.
It is kind of surprising, isn't it?
Yeah. So what are most of the gigs?
I'd say it's about maybe 60 to 70% live club gigs. So just this last Friday and Saturday, we were up in Seattle at the Showbox. And that's a big rock and roll place.
Yeah.
And it holds about 1,000, which was nice. We, you know, sold that out. And then the Crystal Ballroom in Portland, which is one of my favorite venues in the whole country. It's a cool venue if you're ever in Portland. So yeah. Oregon.
Yeah. I from my experience with Super Diamond, I was always really very happily and pleasantly surprised that a tribute act like them could be so much more active in like the club scene rather than just the corporate scene. You know what I mean? Like almost every tribute thing I've done has been primarily corporate, with the club scene being the 20 or 30%.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
You know, and it's the opposite for you guys. And I think that's so much more like in the kid inside of you who wants to play in front of the big audience. Like that's so much better. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right.
You know?
Then the corporate gigs tend to pay a little bit more.
Right, of
And
course.
it's funny, you know, when we get them, we even often will play a corporate gig and we'll change our set to fit a vibe, a slightly different thing. And often we have to play a little differently. We won't play as like, you know, we have
Yeah.
to calm down just a little bit. Because the people that are there, they aren't really our fans paying a ticket to see us.
Right.
It's just something that some, you know, corporate person, you
Got
know,
some harebrained idea that you'd be the audio decoration.
yes, we think our company would like this, and
Right.
you know, just up there praying it's that they're into it, you know, instead of,
Yeah.
you know, like what is that? Is it? Did you guys ever watch that show Silicon Valley?
No, I never saw
I don't
that.
know very well, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it's like they show like the corporate party for some, you know, tech firm, and I think it's like Kid Rock or something that's up there for like 10 people, you know, or and the rest of the party gone, you know. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is funny.
But that's a really scary feeling. You know, you're up there and you're playing this corporate party and
You don't know if you're going to be accepted.
yeah, you don't want people to leave. It's like, please stay, you know, keep
Yeah.
it dancing. You get them on the dance floor or something. It's like, go right to the next tune. Just keep that thing, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I've been playing with Vince. I don't know if you know the New York band Rubik's Cube. They're an '80s
Oh, yeah.
band. Yeah, so I've been playing with them lately, and we just had a corporate gig where it's such a strange vibe because when you start playing, people are looking at you and they're like, "Should we be liking this?"
Yeah, right.
And like, you know, like, should we be up? And like, they don't know how to react, you know.
Exactly.
And then it's your job in a corporate gig like this to even if you have a reputation like Super Diamond, like Rubik's Cube, you got to win them over. And then when you do win them over, they don't want you off the stage. You know what I mean? So it's just weird, kind of like this through the whole gig. But yeah, it's a really interesting vibe, especially with a band like Super Diamond that has such a huge following. Of when you play live versus when you play corporate, it's a very different vibe. You
It
know?
really is. Yeah, we have to change our whole vibe. So, but that's okay. We're good at it. It took us a while, I think, to finally just hone it in. We threw in other cover tunes at the end of the set also. So it's
Right.
like, oh, let's play, you know, Don't You Forget About Me, or, you know, something that, you know, an 80s tune or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
To
That's
keep them
cool.
kind of going. Yeah.
It's cool.
Let's fly in another clip. Here's Vince with a song finale with one of my favorite things to do on a drum kit, Big Triplets. Check this out. I love that. I love the drum cam shots too. And a shout out to Joshua VP out in Belgium. And Joshua, I've never asked you what VP is. Is that like your actual last name with no vowel? What's that all about? A fellow drummer, really good drummer. Do you have a favorite song in the set that you look forward to the most, Vince? I love asking this question.
That is a really tough one, you know. I think one thing with the song Red Red Wine, I didn't know that song was a Neil Diamond song. I thought of it as a UB40 song.
Oh, wow.
And we've messed around with it. It's like, oh, we can make it reggae like they did, but there's a lot of different reggae grooves you could do. So,
yeah.
you know, we keep changing that. Even every gig, it seems like let's, you know, slightly,
That's fun.
change the reggae groove, and that's okay. And Neil Diamond seemed happy that, you know, UB40 did it that way, and
Yeah.
you know, so
I have a question about Surreal Neil. So Surreal Neil is the lead singer,
Yeah.
Randy,
Yeah.
and he's a first of all great guy, and he's like a really really awesome. I mean, the impersonation is amazing. You know.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working with Mark Martel, that Mark would say like people would actually tell him. you know who you sound like, kind of thing, you know. And enough people said Freddie Mercury, where he's like, well, maybe I should start looking into this. So it was more other people's ideas, you know what I mean? So with Randy, was that the same kind of thing, or did he more notice from the beginning, like, oh, I sound like Neil Diamond, you know?
He says that, you know, when he lived in Arizona in the 80s, he would do like original music, right? And maybe a few other covers, you know, just singer-songwriter stuff, solo singing. And he'd throw in a few Neil Diamond tunes almost as a joke.
Right.
Like, people probably won't dig this, but I'm going to do it because my parents had the record. I had the
That's hilarious.
He really liked Neil Diamond, but he really didn't think people would love it as much as they did. And people would say that same thing. Wow, you really sound like Neil Diamond, you know?
Yeah.
And so when he moved to San Francisco, and these guys that, you know, I didn't even know some of the guys that were in from the very beginning of that group. I think it was a different guitar player and a different drummer. And they, you know, they just took the ball and ran with it. And
How long has the band been around?
30 years.
Wow.
And this February will be my 23rd year.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't been in any relationship that long.
Yeah, I don't.
Don't tell Carol that, please.
Yeah.
Oh, she knows. I'm sure we'll make it that far, but it
I don't
Yeah,
think
you
I
will.
have either.
hasn't been that yet.
I haven't. Yeah, other than kids. And if you don't mind me asking, and you can wave this off if you want, but out of curiosity, how old are you?
I'll be 60 in February.
Oh, okay. Our birthdays are close. I'll be 60 in April. So that's a long gig. I mean, for any business, any industry, that's a long job.
Yeah.
To hold.
I never dreamt I'd be it. But, you know, I've been in situations with other bands that just seemed, you know, really high highs and really low lows, and people that did a lot of, you know, substance and stuff that was just difficult. And booking agents also, I think it really makes a difference if you can have a connection with that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, they can be a business partner in the band, which is nice.
Yeah.
You're not just side man. you
Yeah.
know.
No,
Which is
relationships
nice.
are everything.
A side man is great. I love being a side man because you have the freedom of that,
Yeah.
right? You can come and go whenever you want. But being a business partner is nice. You know, it's like the agent sends you, hey, do you guys want to play this venue for this amount of money, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever. And you get to help decide. And I like that.
That's great. Go ahead, Jason.
Sorry. Vince, when you travel, first of all, I just so everybody knows, I've been friends with Vince for almost as long as he's been in Super Diamond, so I get to see him when he comes to New York. Yay. But when you travel, are there any places that you go to that are a little more or a little less welcoming than the Bay Area? Like, are there places that you're like, oh my God, we love going there, or like, the crowd isn't as good at these places, that sort of thing?
I can't think of any really.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a great question, but I really, yeah.
Do you
everywhere-
guys?
I mean, it shows how good your following is, you know?
Yeah, everywhere we
that's
go,
true.
people are super welcoming.
Do you guys rehearse?
We did, especially for when we do the orchestral stuff, like the Pops concerts,
Yeah.
which we found another revenue for making some money. And and there again is another version of Super Diamond,
Yeah.
because you've got the symphony orchestra.
Oh, wow.
And the difficulty in that for me is, you know, well, the orchestras are really big. And I guess you're talking about welcoming. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh, these poor violinists spent their whole life. Now they're going to play whole notes on, you know, Sweet Caroline or whatever. You know what I mean? And then also the drums, we put the drum set right up front next to the conductor so that we can be connected instead of having the drum set in the back.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'll be counting a lot of the songs, and then he'll go off, you know, my tempo.
Do you have eye contact with them?
Yeah, I have eye contact.
Cool.
When I play with Mark Wood, for those who don't know, Mark Wood's the original violinist of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, so we're doing a lot of orchestral gigs. I find that I am literally staring down the conductor the entire time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because for sound reasons, for, you know, if his hand is different than the tempo,
Dude.
I'm usually counting off most of the tunes, all that stuff.
Do you feel like some conductors are so far ahead of the beat?
Oh yeah, so far ahead.
It freaks me out because I remember
Yeah.
when I was in orchestra as a kid in the back in the percussion section, I never thought about it that much. Maybe, I don't know what the difference is, but being right up there with them. But I guess they have to be a little bit ahead for some of the latency on the strings, or I don't know what it is, but sometimes it drives me crazy. Other guys are pretty much, right on the beat.
Right.
I don't know why some guys feel like they have to conduct so far ahead.
That's cool.
I sometimes I can't watch. I'm like, don't even look at him.
Yeah. So I hope he's not watching, but I was at we were at a show. So my drum student, who's 16, plays in a big band here in town. We live in a very small town. In fact, I don't even think the conductor's on Facebook. His wife might be, though. And that's okay. But I saw what I thought was him conducting. He's also plays flute and he sings and he's a conductor. And it has like two variations of this big band where some of the players go off for the beginning and then it's a bigger band in the middle, then the other players go off. And it looks like he was conducting ahead of the beat. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at Marty, my student, and he's like laying it down nice and easy. And I didn't feel he was behind, and the band sounded together other than the piano player. It's like a dotted eighth note behind everything. And that's where my wife and I really complimented Marty afterwards. Like, dude, with that guy on the piano behind you, like you really held it together. But the guy's like 80 whatever, and they don't want to get rid of it. It's a community band. It's that kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. It was not my imagination, because when like you said, when I played in concert band and orchestra as a kid, I never felt that or it occurred to me. I just did whatever the director, was doing. But that's really interesting that you mentioned that, and you got a lot. Like I was wondering, like Marty's looking at him, but he's not playing to the sped up thing.
Right.
It was really awkward to see. It's like I wanted to cover up the conductor guy so I could just watch Marty,
Another thing that's awkward, and if anyone's listening out there, please invent a better plastic cage for.
Oh God, tell me about
sound they always put you in the plexiglass bubble, right?
Yeah, what's cool is that he wasn't in one. It was nice and open. It was really cool.
The acoustics in there are really bad, and I don't know any way around it.
And I've never played in one of those, so I can't even imagine.
I think the only way around it, and we've spoken about this in my own projects a few times, is that you have to have an ongoing in-ear mix. Like you have to have an in-ear system. Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
I do. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
but it's still the acoustics of the room. I can still feel it.
Yeah. It's weird. It's such a
not
weird
a room,
thing. Or Vince, with TSO, they only play with electric drums, so that there's no bleed.
I've done that, but
I know it's like
I do, and I do like my Rolands, but it's just
yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Let's do another clip. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question after the clip, but let's do the clip
we'll
and then I have a
clip first. This is Vince Littleton, drums with Super Diamond at one of the House of Blues. Excuse me. Which House of Blues, Vince? Thanks.
God bless you.
Where was this? Do you remember?
I don't even know the clip you're showing, but I'm guessing Hollywood. Maybe?
Okay, cool. And which is not there anymore. I can't believe it's not there anymore. That's crazy.
Oh, I know.
Okay, here we go. This is cool. Check it out, folks. Cool. What's your question, Jason? Then I have one.
So, even I think this is even new since Vince and I have even just spoke socially on the phone. But I haven't asked you yet if there's been any effect on you guys, of course, in the positive direction, with the popularity of A Beautiful Noise, the new Broadway show that's come out.
You know how it affected us is recently our agent trying to get us back into New York. Like Irving Plaza or one of them.
Oh, and they said.
And they said, let's wait until this is over because we don't want to try to compete with that.
Yeah.
So on the other side of that, are there people that you think might be going to that show that will be hungry for more to see you when you do get booked out there? Like it'll fuel your gigs possibly?
Like
Yeah, that would be cool.
I would like to think so.
Yeah. Do you
Was
always...
there any...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
down.
Jason.
You go. You gotta love this delay. Was there anything before the show came out? You know, shows take a long time to develop.
Okay, I'll go.
Obviously.
No, I'm kidding.
And you know, it's kind of like, you know, they start developing it, then there's producers, then there's people who fund it, all this kind of stuff. Were you guys given a heads up about this show, or did it just sort of come out and you found out?
I didn't know personally, but
Okay.
possibly our agent might have known. He's got his ear to the ground pretty good. So
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. And I was going to ask, do you always use backline, or does it depend on where the gig is?
If it's in the Bay Area, I bring my own kit.
Okay.
And everywhere else is backline, and I have a DW endorsement, so I'm happy with their drums.
It's never hard to get stuff.
No,
No?
it's every SIR is usually who ends up, you know,
Yeah.
doing the
Same thing with
backline.
cymbals and everything. You usually get like your setup.
Not always. But I still get decent ones. I ask for Peisty,
Yeah.
but for whatever reason, I'll often get Sabian or Zildjian, which is, you know.
Huh. But you're able to get the
I don't wanna
sizes
send
and
them back.
types.
Oh
You-
man, I had one time somebody sent me some B8s or something.
Oh no.
I was like, "You're kidding." This time I'm sending them back. You know, I'm going to be that guy. Usually I'm like, okay, I'll deal with this if there's a problem or something.
Yeah.
But
But normally you're able to get like the sizes and types, like,
yeah,
you know, all the. I'm always curious about that because in 53 years of drumming, wow, I should be better. But anyways, in my day, there was no backline. Like, let me show you something.
Oh, I know.
Let
Yeah.
me show you something real quick. So, like,
It's always pulling pictures off his wall.
yeah,
I love it. I love it.
this was my kit.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's almost
Concert toms.
Yeah, it's almost the same kit in my studio. There's just a couple or three drums not there. Timpani drums, Simmons drums are set up with that to my left as I'm saying. I played that kit every fucking gig we did at Madame Wong's, at the Whiskey, at the Rock. Everywhere we played, we schlepped that kit because guess what? That was my instrument. And there was no backline in those days. We're talking
Right.
79 through 84, 5, 6, something like that. So
Yeah.
when the word backline came out,
Yeah.
I had been sort of absent from the scene as far as playing live for a long time. And I was like, what's that? Wait, you mean they provide drums? And I'm thinking, I don't think anyone would have this for. I got two timpani drums set up with that because it was
Well,
a progressive
yeah.
rock band, and
Yeah.
that was my instrument. It's like if Rick Wakeman was going to do a Yes gig, but showed up and there's a Rhodes piano and one little Casio synthesizer. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Well, that's
the whole
probably different-
concept is still
Yeah.
foreign to me because I've never done that.
Yeah, I think it might depend on like you said though. You guys it was your sound that you wanted, right?
Yeah.
For that thing, and I don't know. DWs just seem pretty consistent, you know.
Yeah.
If you got for the right sizes.
See, Vince is a better guy than I am because even in New York, when I get back, when we have gigs, I'm still asking for backline. I'm like, I'm not taking my shit out of my basement. At
Yeah,
all.
my stuff doesn't move anymore. Yeah.
I'm just
I had my-
that's laziness.
I had my car broken into in San
Oh
Francisco,
yeah,
right?
you told me. Yeah.
Right? And it could have been much worse. So I'm actually lucky in a way, but boy, that feeling, it just
I know.
like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
I
Why
know.
steal from musicians?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying stealing is good from anything, but come on, leave us alone.
Yeah.
I'm one of those weirdos that I've never sold a piece of gear. I
Nice.
sold a throne once, but I've never sold a piece of gear. I've lost a couple things to theft. A Gibson Grabber bass years and years and years ago.
So
A couple
frustrating.
mic stands, couple cymbal stands, a snare, and that's it.
Yeah.
With all the stuff I have, it's all the stuff I've ever had. I'm the original owner of everything except my two timpani drums that are 1959s. I'm the second owner. Got those in
Nice.
77. And my hi-hats were Carmine Apice's hi-hats that I
Wow.
traded in like 83. Everything
cool.
else, I'm the original owner. I've never sold anything. I'm not a collector though. I don't have like 80 snare drums and I'm not that guy, which is fine for people who are, but I've never like, I can't part with that stuff. I'm too much. I'll just say I'm too much of a weenie. I can't, I get too emotionally attached to that stuff. It's part of my
You
history.
must have a big house.
We
So you
do
can tell us.
actually, but my stuff, like I've got 3 stringed instruments on a shelf here. I've got my 1977 Ibanez mandolin that I've had since '77. I've got a 10-string Brazilian guitar I got in 2004 or something, and my dad's 1957 Giannini classical guitar that he bought brand new when he was 17. Everything else is down, well, except for these things. That's my 79 Tama Imperial Star snare. But yeah, my 3 drum sets are down in my studio, and one's not even set up, my electronic kit, which I'm dying to set up.
Nice.
I have a question for Vince. Over the years, I think you guys, I want to say that you guys released a few like live records or things like that, I believe. Have you? Yeah, right?
One, yeah. Well,
One, okay.
Yeah, one.
Okay. How has that been in regard to the copyright situations and that sort of thing? Because I remember this being a little bit of an issue with the Ultimate Queen celebration when we were dealing with Queen and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I forget how it works, but there are, copyright things where we have to pay royalties off of every record sold,
Yeah.
I forget.
Okay.
It's not mechanical royalties. It's there's 2 kind of
There's
royalties.
performance and
Performance
mechanical.
royalties. Yeah. Yeah.
Mechanical, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if it was sometimes we had a lot of issues with like the band getting like, okay, pushing back. Don't do anymore. Don't tour when we're in this area. There's a 6-month window where you can't be in this area because we were here, things like that. So I didn't know if you ever get any pushback from Neil's management at all for anything.
well, I think anyone can record someone else's song, right? So,
Right.
I mean, there's been a million. Here in my Beatles cup,
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So-
I'm going to play one more clip. Yeah. And I'm wondering, the beginning of it, folks, if you're watching the archive, might get muted because it's from a television show, and then it launches into a brilliant promo reel of Super Diamond with Vince on drums. And most of you, if you live in any corner of the Western world, will know the show that the beginning's from. This is really, really cool. Check this out. We'll come back with some closing questions for Vince. Here we go.
Tribute bands for 200, please.
All right, first clue. Super Diamond honors him, I said. John.
Who's Neil Diamond?
Correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are Super Diamond. Baby, love me, yes, she does. The girl outside here, and she got the way to put me cherry, baby, yeah. Alright. Where it began, I can't begin to know, but then I know that it's growing strong. Touching hand, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sweet Caroline, good time never seems so good. I've been in
But nobody has mined Neil's musical gems with more success than a band called Super Diamond. They
I'm
consistently
going to
play
scoot
to
ahead
sell
a
out.
touch.
It don't swing and dance and it don't walk. Long as I can have you here with me, I'd much rather be brother in blue jeans.
That's a great reel. And to be immortalized on Jeopardy, geez, that's when you know you've landed, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
That's cool. So here's my closing question. And then, of course, Jason, if you have one, go for it. Mine is, as a musician and a business person, what's the most you've gotten out of this experience of 23 years working with Randy and Super Diamond?
The most I've got. That's great. That is, oh my gosh, you got me, I think. Comparing it to other situations,
Yeah, or
I've-
anything, yeah.
I guess sort of a stability, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling of freelancing is scary. And I did it for a long time. A long time. You know, of course, being in an original band, scary too, because you know you're playing your music and you're hoping you can build that following, and that's a lot of work. And you know,
There's no big fat guy in the back of the club with a cigar and a stack of contracts waiting for the next Neil Diamond or Led Zeppelin anymore.
right? And you know, maybe I just had bad luck in those kind of bands because I thought some of the original bands I played in were really good, but there is a luck factor. And you have to have the right kind of producer make a good recording, or at least I think you do.
I think it's that. It's time and place. For me, this band, progressive rock band Opus One, we were playing progressive rock in California when progressive rock was drying up and new wave and hair metal was the big thing, and we were still playing at the Troubadour, opening for Motley Crue, playing with Great White, you know, bands like that. And here's this progressive rock band. Like, what were we thinking? We were just too stubborn to
You were doing
try
it-
to fit in. It was time and place for us.
You must have felt there was a possibility because what the music you were playing was great. So
Yeah, it was all original and it was fun and it was.
I'll bet it was good.
Yeah, we loved that you couldn't dance to it without hurting yourself.
Oh,
that's
yes. I was in a progressive rock band in high school and the first few years of college, and we would play these high school dances, but you couldn't dance to the songs, right?
Yeah.
And the girls would hate us, and the guys would always be, yeah. And the girls would play something we can dance to.
Yeah, we were a cross between Gentle Giant, Kansas, and Frank Zappa.
Oh man,
You know,
My three favorites.
I would have been a fan.
yeah, it was great. It really was.
I would've
but
loved you guys.
That's just not what was going. We could have probably moved to the Netherlands or something, and it would have been great, or Germany, because that was
I
still
would've
going
been.
on then.
I would have been your biggest fan.
Cool. Thank you, Jason.
I just want to know when Vince and Super Diamond or Vince and Carol are coming back to New York, so when I can see you again.
Do you ever
Dude,
come out like down southwest, Vegas,
Oh,
LA, Phoenix?
Yeah, once in a while.
Okay.
And we just played Phoenix recently.
Really?
So I'll
Oh,
bug you
damn.
once there. Yeah. It was the Arizona State Fair.
Oh, okay. Awesome. But when are you going out to see out by Jason?
And Jason, I have to remember the date, but I think it's the end of April.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'll keep you posted.
Okay, just text me.
Last Friday of April.
Text me the date and I'll put it in my calendar.
Yeah, for sure.
Jason, put May 20th in your calendar, and I'll tell you why later.
Okay, I will.
And the day before and the day after.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
It's a weekend, so you might miss an opportunity, but
Okay.
it'll be worth it. Okay, we'll talk.
Okay. Good to know.
Vince, it's been great having you on. Great playing, great musicianship. What a great story to share your experience of this 23-year journey. It's awesome.
Your
Congratulations.
Your questions are really, really good. It's like, oh, I really never thought of why, or
Thanks. Yeah, Jason actually gives me all the questions. I don't know
course.
what I'm doing.
I'm the brains behind the whole website, so
That's right. I'm not even the arm candy. I don't know why I'm here. But thank you. And Jason, thank you
Thank you
again
for
so
having me.
much for joining me on our own show, a tribute to the tributes, where we talk about what is the difference between just playing the music and really paying tribute to the music.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
you.
and thanks everybody for following what we do here on Drum Talk TV. Sign up for the email list. Huge, enormous announcements coming, and it's always going to go out through the email list first. One coming out, actually, I think it's tomorrow night. So sign up, and folks, we will see you soon. Guys, hang on the line as we say goodbye to the audience. Thanks everybody so much.